Hi, my name is Sunny, and I wanted to make a podcast that would be an easy listening, feel good experience like a campfire where you share stories, chat with friends, play games, sing songs, and come home with good vibes. Every week, I want to provide a campfire corner in your day. I hope you will join me. In this episode, the story of the unhappy king, a piece of music to cheer you up, and I will try to answer the question that I put in the title. What can you expect from this podcast? Hi, my name is Sunny. I am the host of this podcast. This is the very first podcast that I'm ever recording in my life. So I'm probably going to make 1,000 mistakes in the first episode. Just please bear with me and see me through. Let's start with the story for this episode. This is the story of the unhappy king. Once upon a time, there was a king. He had a good treasure, a good kingdom, some wives, very wise and loyal ministers. By all rights, the king should have been happy. But he was not happy. The king was unhappy. Now, this is not a common man's sadness. This is not you or me. This is the king. And king's sadness cannot be ignored. Rightly so, because if the king is unhappy, this is going to filter through to everybody and the whole kingdom is going to be unhappy. The ministers, the courtiers, king's wives, everybody tried to find a cure for the king's sadness. But whatever they tried entertaining him, they tried giving him good news about how the kingdom was running, they tried to find some stand-up comedians for him, but nothing worked. If it had worked, that would be the end of the story, right? But you can't finish the film in the first reel. When all of them failed, they tried to think, what can we do? Because all the effort that they made, there was no use. It did not make the king happy. What do you do when you exhaust all resources? You outsource the problem to India. But the king was in India. His kingdom was in India. And fortunately, in India, there are a lot of wise men, sages, fakirs. There was one such sage who lived in the kingdom, and people used to go to him with their problems. The ministers called him to the king's court and put this problem before him. The king is unhappy. This cannot be allowed to continue. The sage talked to the king, asked him some questions. Apparently, there was nothing wrong in the kingdom. Everything was as it should have been. But the king was still unhappy. The sage came up with a solution. He told the king, find a man who is happy, who is genuinely, truly happy, and borrow his shirt. Wear that shirt for one day and your sadness will be cured. King thought that was going to be easy. He asked his prime minister, said, you are my prime minister. Are you happy? I need your shirt. The Prime Minister made a sad face. It appeared that a few months ago, the Prime Minister had a son who died at a very early age, and since then he and his wife had not been happy. So the king says, alright, sorry to hear that, bro, but let's go to the next minister. The next minister had some other issue. He was having some family quarrel with his brothers about some property. He was not happy. And so on down the line they went to the next minister, to the next minister. When all the ministers admitted that they were not happy, then the number came to courtiers, servants, king's wives, everybody. But it turned out that everybody who appeared happy was actually not happy. So the search had to be widened outside of the court, into the capital. Ask other people. Ask the normal citizens. There must be people happy in this kingdom, because the king was a nice king. He was a benevolent king. He took care of his subjects. But it appeared that everybody had something that was eating up at them, something that was bothering them, or even if everything was okay, they were just generally unhappy with the way things were in their lives. This became a bigger problem. So once things could not be solved within the capital, the Prime Minister thought it was an important enough problem that the army should be called. So the king's army was called, and every soldier had one job: go out into the kingdom and find one man who is happy and bring his shirt. Parties of soldiers went out of the capital into the kingdom in search of this elusive happy man. Pretty soon they found that it was not such an easy job. It was almost impossible to find a happy man. Then, as it happens, every problem has a solution. One day, a company of 4 or 5 soldiers was walking through from one village to the other village in search of a happy man, and they passed a little forest. From the forest, they heard the sound of somebody singing. They thought, okay, that sounds like a happy song. They went into the forest looking for the person who was singing. They found a man who was sitting in a tree, and he was cutting tree branches. No, he was not chopping down the branch that he was sitting on. That's a different story. I'll tell you that another time. But he was just cutting down different branches and throwing the wood down on the ground. And while he was working, he was singing. The soldiers thought, well, he seems happy enough. Let's see if he's actually happy. So they called out to him. So he came down from the tree, and they asked him, why are you singing? He said, why not? And I think that should be a valid answer to most of the reasons when somebody asks you why you're doing this. Well, why not? If you want to do it, go ahead and do it. So they asked him the actual question, are you happy? He said, yes. But the soldiers had interviewed so many people who had said yes at first, and then it turned out they were not truly, genuinely happy. So they asked him more questions. Are you married? Yes. Do you have any children? Yes, I have one son. Okay, but you are happy? Yes. Okay, what do you do? He said, I'm a lumberjack. I chop wood and sell it, make money to feed my family. Okay, but you are happy? I said, yes, I'm happy, but why are you asking? So they said, our king is unhappy, and the only way to make him happy, to get rid of his sadness, is to borrow the shirt of a man who is genuinely happy. Now you say you are happy, so would you be willing to lend your shirt to His Majesty the King? he said, I am happy, but what is a shirt? I don't have any shirt. I don't have money for a shirt. So that became a problem, a new problem now. The guy is happy, but you can't borrow his shirt because he doesn't have any. So the soldiers did the only thing possible. They took the lumberjack with them back to the capital and presented him to the king. And they explained the problem. Your Majesty, this man says he's happy. He's genuinely, truly happy, just like the sage wanted. But he doesn't have a shirt. What do we do? King also didn't know what to do. So they called the sage again to explain the situation to him. He heard everything and then he explained to the king. He said, if this man can be happy when he has not even money enough to buy a shirt, you are a king, your kingdom loves you, your subjects love you, you get tax on time, you have a lot of treasure, you are not at war with any neighboring kingdoms, you have beautiful queens, you have loyal courtiers, wise ministers. If you want to be happy, just be. And believe it or not, that cured the king's sadness. That was the story of the unhappy king. Let's get into the next section of this podcast. Since this is the first episode, I thought we should spend a few minutes getting to know each other. I'll start. Who am I? That's the first question. Well, I'm not a celebrity. You did not miss a memo on that, so don't worry. I'm just a normal person like you. My name is Sunny Goswami, or Sunil Goswami if you want to be technical about it. But my friends call me Sunny, and you should do the same. I was born in Delhi, in India. I grew up there. I work in IT. Because of my work, I have been fortunate enough to live in a few different countries. Right now I live in Oxford in England. I moved here a couple of years ago to study. I'll tell you that story in more detail another time. So in a nutshell, that's me. Why did I start this podcast? Well, why not? I'll give you the long answer another time. I'm saying that a lot today, but this is just the first episode and I have a lot to tell. So yeah, I have to say another time for a few things today. But for now, I want to try to answer the question that I posed in the title, can this podcast make you happy? The answer is both yes and no. So let me elaborate on that. George Bernard Shaw has this quote, life is a long sentence of sorrow punctuated by happiness. Now, I don't really agree with that expression fully, but I do agree that you can't be happy all the time. If you were smiling and grinning and laughing all day, every day, your family will call the mental asylum. So you can't be happy all the time, but we do have small pockets of happiness in our day and in our life. For example, if you ask somebody who is a parent, they'll probably say that when they come back from work and they can spend time with their children, that's a very happy time in their day. Sometimes there is just one moment of happiness in our day that we look forward to. Sometimes there are two, sometimes there are even more. And I want this podcast to be one of those moments in your week that you look forward to. Yes, I can't do it every day, so it will have to be those moments in your week. I'll tell you a lot of stories that may amuse you, entertain you. I'll give you some recommendations for music, movies, books, and other things that may ease some problem in your life or at least give you some entertainment for a while. That is something that you can do when you're not listening to the podcast as well. So for that reason, you should always check out the show notes, which is the episode description in wherever you found this podcast. There is another quote about life that I like, even though I don't fully agree with it. It is from Princess Bride. I have not seen the movie. I've only read the quote online. So I don't know who says it to whom, but the quote is, "Life is pain, Highness. Anyone who says differently is selling something." I love the definite clarity of this quote. I don't agree with this that life is pain, but quite often someone who seems like they have your best interest at heart are actually selling something. That includes me. Yep, there are two ways that I'm selling something. One, I want you to subscribe to the podcast, share it, recommend it to other people. The more people subscribe, the happier I would be. That's a reward in itself, that my podcast is able to add a little value to so many people's lives. Then there's a second, more practical way, that I'll be sharing links to things in the show notes, like sometimes movies or books or something else, and sometimes they may be affiliate links. I'll explain how affiliate links work when I share one. I'm not sharing one in this episode, so we can move on. So all the stories that I will be telling you, where will the stories come from? Some would be from my life. Some might be just anecdotes rather than proper full-fledged stories. There may be some travel stories, because I do like to travel quite a lot, or things that I have read, or stories from other people's lives. Anything that's either amusing or entertaining or can be helpful, or we can learn something from it, I'll share that on the podcast. Sometimes I may invite a guest if they have an interesting story to tell. Other than the stories, there would be quite a few different kinds of segments, and I'll mix and match. That's a problem with me, that I can't do the same thing over and over again. So I will mix and match those segments based on what the content of that is. For example, there would be sometimes jokes, some games, some music pieces, and maybe puzzles. And I would like this to be a bit more two-sided. You would listen to me for half an hour in my episode, but then I would want you to talk back to me by either telling me one of your stories, or giving me an answer to a puzzle or riddle that I have asked in that episode, or maybe anything else that you want to share. For that reason, because I'm a technical person, I'm a nerd, so I have created a solution for that, and my solution is that I've created a website which is called campfirecornerpodcast.com, and it's a long name, I know, but the link is in the show notes. And on the website, each episode will have one dedicated page, which will have the show notes, some information, and then some links to things that I would have talked about in that episode. And will also have link to a Google form where you can click and go answer the question that I've asked, or you can share something from your side. If you just want to share some general feedback, there's a different form for that on the website as well. So I would like this to be a more give and take. I talk sometimes, you talk back, and then we can have a proper discussion around things. And there might be sometimes some non-audio things, like for example, if I'm talking about some photos I have taken, then I can put them on the website. So I would say, yeah, bookmark the podcast, but also check out the website. And that, I think, kind of covers as to what this podcast is going to be about. So to answer the actual question, can this podcast make you happy? No, only you can make yourself happy, nobody else. But with this podcast, I can try and give you some reasons to be happy, or some reasons to be not bored. Like for example, when you are traveling, when you are commuting, and it's a lot of hassle, and normally you would have been bored there, and now you don't have to be, because you can just keep this podcast on, keep listening without having to pay too much attention. There would be nothing that you have to take notes on. I won't ask anything that requires a lot of concentration. It would mostly be you just keep it on while you are walking around and doing your thing, cooking, traveling, taking a walk in the park, whatever. So yeah, this is going to be the mission of this podcast, to try and give you something that's very easy listening and then leaves you with good vibes. I hope we'll have fun together. I'm sure we'll have fun together. Today's segment is going to be about music, and since we are talking about happiness in this episode, I wanted to share a piece of music that I find very useful in cheering me up. It's Mozart's Symphony number 25. I just love this one. When I had it for the first time, I just went crazy for it. I listened to it all day on a loop. I'll play a small part of that here, and I'll link the full piece in the show notes so that you can check it out later on YouTube or Spotify. It's in public domain, so it's free to use whenever you want, wherever you want, so just keep it handy. I will just play my favorite part from it so that you can see why I love this so much. Isn't it glorious? I just love this. Now my question for today is also related to music. I want to hear from you. Is there a piece of music that cheers you up when you are down? It could be a song, it could be classical music, it could be singing, it could be anything. I have created a Google form, and the link for that is in the show notes and also on my website for this podcast. So yeah, if you want to share that, just give me the name of the song or the URL, whatever you have. I hope to hear from you, and maybe what you share can be useful for other people. They can try it and maybe it will work for them as well. So the question is there a piece of music that cheers you up? In today's episode, I told you the story of the unhappy king and kind of set your expectations of what this podcast is going to be like. I also gave you a teaser of Mozart's Symphony number 25. If you want to hear the whole piece, I have put a link for a YouTube video and a Spotify track on my website and also in the show notes. In the show notes, you will also find a link to a Google form where you can answer my question from today's episode. Is there a piece of music that cheers you up? Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time. Bye. Thank you for staying with me all the way through. Don't forget to check the show notes for the additional items that I mentioned in this episode. There's a link there where you can talk back to me. I would love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss my future episodes. I am Sunny and this is Campfire Corner. I hope you have a wonderful day, evening, night. See you in the next one.